you are making a gravy out of cashews. Oh my God, I love that. How?
Yes, yes.
Hi, everyone. This is Diane Gilman, formerly known as the Queen of Jeans on QVCHSN, but now the proud host of my podcast, Too Young to Be Old. You know, holiday season is here. Unbelievable, right? And the first thing I think of is I hate turkey. And the second thing I think of is, oh my God, I'm going to gain 10 pounds. Oh, then January, February, what a drag trying to take it off. So today we actually have tips from an incredible nutritionist, Britta Sather. Tips for creating balance between healthy living and life's delectable indulgences. Welcome, Britta.
Thank you for having me, Diane. I'm excited.
Well, Britta actually took time out of her busy career and life and created what I like to call an alternative holiday recipe book. And you'll be able to get that through a link that we'll supply to you at the end of the podcast. But what I wanted to do was take all time favorites and convert them from heart attack food to holistic, healthy food. And that is not easy to do. But I will tell you what, you will get to a point, ladies, in your life, somewhere around 50, 55, when your body's just not working the same anymore. And you are not digesting things as easily. You are indulging yourself, and it's really putting on the poundage. So I took Britta and said, you know what? Let's do some all time favorites: mac and cheese, meatballs and gravy. Love, obsessed with. But I'm not supposed to eat meat. I'm not supposed to eat dairy. So there we go with some cheeses. I love cranberry sauce, but I'm not going to eat that jello thing out of a can. I love pumpkin pie. We've got a totally new take on that. And apple pie, which is more like apple crisp. And there I have to say, big yum. Oh my gosh. Love, 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 love that. So let's start just talking about the holidays and navigating all those indulgent foods. I say after a certain age, Britta, if you don't put in your system key nutrients that support your health, you will really start to see yourself lagging in energy, digestion. Yeah, give us your take on how, through diet, you can maintain vitality at any age.
Yeah, absolutely. And nutrition is so important for everything in our lives. We really need to focus on that nutrient dense food. So what does that mean? The foods that are more full of the macronutrients that you need, the protein, the fiber, vitamins and minerals. So there's really, no such thing as good and bad food. Food is all fuel for your body. So we like to talk about your always foods and your sometimes foods. So
Ah,
around the holidays, we have a little extra of those sometimes foods. And it's important, this is such a great time of year to enjoy the time with your family and let go of some of that guilt that you feel. And depriving yourself is probably just going to lead to overindulging and overeating anyway. So you can have some of those favorites, in small portions and occasional, and then put a little spin on your favorites to make them healthier, and you won't feel as weighted down, but still feel like you're getting those treats.
okay, so for a lot of us, we want to be gluten free, or we should be. I know I should. I have inflammation in my joints, and gluten, it's
Mhm.
it's an almost obvious immediate result if I eat gluten rich pastries or breads, which
Mhm.
I love, of course. So, one of the things I do love, and I think is the ultimate comfort food, is mac and cheese. But you, crafty girl, switched it around and you actually made it foundationally butternut squash. Why and how? And how do you get the flavor out of it? We can't, you'll be able to
Uh-huh.
see our recipes afterwards, but for now, I'm simply telling you, I asked Britta for super healthy and doable alternatives. So, how in the world did you make mac and cheese into a healthful main course? I'd love to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a very common favorite of the comfort food for many people. And, I live up here in the Midwest and we love our hot dishes.
Oh, yeah.
So getting that creamy, warm feeling is what we're going for. And cheese, we all know, is full of saturated fat. A lot of times, mac and cheese will have heavy cream. The things that just very calorie rich, full of saturated fat that we need to minimize. So if you've ever cooked with butternut squash and pureed it, it gets a really nice creamy texture. And squash is full of nutrients. It's got fiber, vitamin A, the beta carotene, vitamin C, potassium. So it's very, very nutrient dense. So it's just a great option to incorporate into your diet. But it really makes a nice substitute for melted cheese. And I'll be honest, I
Wow.
stole this recipe from my sister-in-law who is vegan and gluten-free.
Wow.
And so she came around for the holidays and started making this butternut squash mac and cheese, and we all fell in love with it. So it's kind of a holiday staple for us now. But even the kids love it, which, if you can fool them into thinking it's mac and cheese, then you've got a pretty good dish. So,
Totally.
yeah. So, what we're doing is taking out the melted cheese and the cream, and we're roasting. You cube the butternut squash, you roast it, and then you puree it. You can add some almond milk or oat milk to puree it together. And then when you mix it, you can use gluten-free noodles. You mix it together, add some spices, and it really, a lot of times, people can't even tell that there's no cheese in the dish. And even I made a butternut squash soup the other day, and my son thought it was, cheese soup because it's very, very
Wow.
similar texture and almost taste. So this is an easy swap for just a lot healthier option.
And also I use vegan cheese and they
Yes.
really improved it. I mean, it
Yeah.
gets to a point where the whole deal to me was the consistency when it melted. And of course, the star of the show in macaroni and cheese is the cheese. But if you can go for vegan, especially if you're 50, 55 or over,
Mm-hmm.
it's so much easier to digest.
Yes.
That it's, you're right, it doesn't have that heaviness to it. And I think when you're younger and also at a time when we were more of an agrarian nation, so you were burning off calories out there day and night and chopping trees for wood, and you're not burning off any of those calories now. Having
Right.
a stable dish that is something you grew up with, but now you are able to grow old with and grow beyond with by making it gluten free, cheese free, dairy free, because I'm also lactose intolerant, so they tell
Uh-huh.
me. That is such a positive factor. And what I always like to keep it simple, Britta. So,
Mhm.
would you use a food emulsifier or would you use a food processor here?
Yeah, so this one is probably easier to transfer the squash into a food emulsifier. But when I make my butternut squash soup, I just use a handheld
Yeah,
emulsifier. So easy.
that's what I
So
have.
yep, that works great.
Okay, good. So now we're going to go on to something that can be done in a lot of ways. But I was telling Britta before the podcast, that I was interviewed for a magazine, and they asked me a really off-putting question, which was, if you could only have one dinner and it had to be the same every night of your life, what would it be? And I said, oh, easy, spaghetti and meatballs. No, hands down, just love it, could eat it forever. But I don't want to eat red meat
Yep.
anymore. Every time I eat it, I feel like I just swallowed a block of cement. And so, as much as I love it and really love meatballs, Britta actually found a way to make meatballs and gravy. And you could certainly turn around and put it with an Italian red sauce
Yep.
over a gluten-free pasta. I
Hmm.
particularly love cauliflower. I can get fresh cauliflower pasta from my local market. Takes 3 minutes to make. Tastes authentic. Has a great quality to it. Really, really holds its shape. So here's what I think is so brilliant about this. It has a cashew gravy, and it is lentils. How do you do that? And how do you hold the whole mixture together
Hmm.
to make that perfect meatball? Oh, I'm so
Yes.
excited to try this.
Yes, this really is delicious. So lentils are so versatile. You really can make them pick up the flavor of whatever you're cooking, and they're also super nutrient dense. So lentils have a lot of protein, plant-based protein, which is can be challenging to get. Fiber, iron is a source of iron, which is really important, especially for young women, for getting those energy levels, and a lot of different vitamins and minerals in lentils. So um, definitely lentils are a great staple food in a lot of dishes. So these meatballs, they use lentils as the base, with a lot of different herbs and spices, a little flaxseed, yeast flakes. So all of these you just kind of mix together, make them into the ball, and they surprisingly hold together very well when they're baked.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, and they are absolutely delicious. I can attest to this.
And I'm going to ask you, as just a partial cook, not really, I would love to be a real cook, but I just don't have the talent. Like, I could never be a singer or a tap dancer, okay? I could never be a chef. But I love to eat. However, there are a few things in here I've never heard of before. So one of them
Hmm.
is yeast flakes. Where do I get
Yeah.
those?
Yeah, so I mean, we actually sell these on Swanson.com.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so they're like a nutritional yeast, and they actually have kind of a cheesy flavor to them. But again, a lot more
Ah,
nutrient dense than that.
okay.
So you can get them on Swanson.com. And I will be completely honest, I do not follow recipes to a T. I definitely play with the recipes. Like you take your personal twists on these recipes, and if there's certain herbs that you like more of or less of, or not at all, absolutely play with the recipes a little bit, and that's going to turn out just fine.
Okay, flax seeds I try to use in my everyday diet.
Yeah.
Sometimes just sprinkle them on top of toast and butter. Um, and really, I have had a very runaway train kind of diet at so many times in my life. So I try to stay within my lane. And that's why, for me, the first time I would try one of your recipes, I would try it literally to your recipe. And then afterwards say to myself, you know what?
Hmm.
I need more of that or less of that. But here's the real deal. Do you find that you get that rich meatball taste from using lentils?
Yeah. So I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat any meat. And so for me, I think the lentils give such a great flavor that to to an average person looking at the meatball, they
Yeah.
would probably feel like they're still getting that warm comfort
Wow.
of the meatball. So that's my opinion on it. You might have some arguments from a few people, but I would say that it will fulfill your craving.
That is great because, not only for Thanksgiving as an alternative to turkey, but for any holiday season, you're going to have football games. Men want big hoagies and big sandwiches. So, could you actually use these meatballs with some red sauce to make a meatball sandwich for the guys? Oh,
Yes,
great.
absolutely. You can make the little more Italian spin on them, add the red sauce, and give you the same feeling.
Okay, so here is where my brain has a difficult time wrapping around it. You are making a gravy out of cashews. Oh my God, I love that. How?
Yes, yes. So you puree the cashews, and this is so great because nuts are so good for your body.
Yeah.
The healthy fat, the vitamin E, the selenium. So if you can incorporate more of the nuts instead of what's in real gravy, which we won't even get into, you're going to get a lot more benefits out of it. But this actually has such a delicious, creamy texture when you puree the cashews with the herbs. It makes such a nice topping for these meatballs.
And would you put that in a food processor or would you use
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't use a handheld?
That would be tough. Yep. So like a blender or food processor would work great.
Okay, and then there are many dishes that could use a great gravy. So it's not only for the meatballs. I could transfer this to other recipes too that call for a gravy. And no, every time, and I'm a big fan of TikTok. So there's so many recipes on TikTok,
Uh-huh.
and they're always the same. Heavy amounts of cheese, heavy whipping cream, milk, and you've got a world of dairy. And of course, it's going to taste good. That's almost like the coward's way out of a recipe is put in all this super rich stuff. Now,
Mm-hmm.
one thing I also notice in your recipes is I don't see a ton of butter here.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that.
Yes. So butter is a saturated fat. It's the type that's solid at room temperature. And saturated fat is what we want to avoid. That's the type of fat that sits in our arteries, raises your cholesterol. So we do minimize the use of butter. Olive oil is a great substitute for
Yeah,
butter. And so, a lot of recipes you just don't need it. We're kind of built to things that we do,
yeah.
but give it a try with at least cut the butter in half when your recipes call for it. Even when I make cookies or baked goods, I'll cut it down by half, and they almost always turn out in a very similar way. So just
For
rethinking
me,
your
I appreciate having menus that cut down the probability that I'm going to be on statins or
yeah.
high blood pressure medicines, or, I will say very, very quickly that when I came out of chemotherapy and radiation, I I was just holding so much steroid water. I gained 30 pounds during chemo. And when I had to bring it all down, I went to my GP and she said, "Oh my God, you're going to die of blood pressure, high blood pressure. And oh my God, your cholesterol." And we're going on and on. Because
Uh-huh.
during chemo, it was easier for me to have an appetite for creamy foods.
Okay.
So she immediately wanted to put me on statins, and I'm very uncomfortable around a lot of drugs. And I said, "Give me 6 months to change my diet and bring down both of those points, blood pressure and cholesterol." She said, "You'll never do it. It's too high. I mean, you're going to drop dead any minute." P.S. I took all dairy, most saturated fats,
Mhm.
red meat, out of my diet, came back 5 months later, blood pressure, perfect. Cholesterol, perfect. And I'll tell you what, she was not happy. She wanted to prescribe those drugs. So people out there, whether you're cooking just for yourself and a mate because kids are gone, or you're cooking for family, do the entire family a favor and make foods that do not work against your body and put you on a plethora of drugs, but rather are a healing and a nutritional device to better health. So now we're going to get to something that just cracks me up. I asked somebody once, I was coming to their house for dinner, Thanksgiving, and I said, oh, what can I bring? And da da da. Well, what kind of cranberries do you have? And she looked at me like she said, are you crazy? Jelly, of course. And I thought, no, not that thing from a can that looks like the Blob, which is one of my favorite horror movies out of the 50s. So you actually have an absolutely delicious recipe for, you want to call it fresh cranberry sauce. It certainly
Yeah.
isn't jellied and for sure isn't canned. And
Right.
I'll tell you what, I love that with leftover turkey, leftover squab or chicken. It is such a delicious, piquant side dish. And, I remember last year we went up into Vermont and bought all of this freshly bottled maple syrup. And
Hmm.
how delicious to use that rather than white sugar. Now, are there any health benefits to using maple syrup as opposed to white sugar?
Well, in moderation. So, it is still a sugar, but it's processed easier in your body. So white sugar is going to spike your blood sugar faster
Yeah.
than the maple syrup will. So we do use maple syrup as a healthier swap in a lot of recipes. I mean, you still need that sweetness, but we're trying not to use the white processed sugar.
I don't even have sugar in the house.
That's
But
awesome.
if I was going to, it would definitely be brown sugar. Which
Yes.
brings me to my next discussion. Strangely enough, Britta and I are talking before the podcast, and I'm talking about how for some reason I will order pumpkin pie, but I'll just eat the filling. I don't know
Hmm.
why, of course I know why, because the crust is not great for you, and I have all the sensitivity to glutens. But Britta, actually, without us ever having that discussion, gives a recipe for crustless pumpkin pie. What led you to choose pumpkin pie to make without a crust? And how interesting that I don't eat it with a crust.
Yes, right. There's nothing healthy in the crust. So it's refined sugar, it's bleached flour, it's butter, sometimes lard, and
Oh,
it's really there. It's there to hold the pie together when you scoop it out. So this recipe uses individual little ramekin dishes, or you can use little casserole dishes, or even muffin tins would work.
yeah.
Um, so this is going to be the filling, and really pumpkin pie. Pumpkin is very nutrient dense, and so that pureed canned pumpkin is actually very beneficial. So we don't need to cut out the dessert. You have to have the dessert. I mean, it's the most
Oh,
important part
you've
of the
got
meal. Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Yep. And so we add in that cinnamon, cut down on the sugar again. I almost always cut the sugar in half of what the recipe asked for, because really you're going to get a lot of sweetness even from that amount. So you're going to make the pumpkin pie filling in these dishes, and you'll still get the feeling of the pumpkin pie. And you know what? Top it with some whipped cream too, and you'll feel like you got the whole pie.
So I do want to ask you because I was a big lover of that fakey whipped cream, like Cool Whip or something. But when
Mhm.
I look at the label on Cool Whip, oh my God, it's all chemicals. And so, where do I get sugar free whipped cream? or
Yeah,
dairy free? That's
yeah,
my
that is a
question.
challenge, right? It's usually hydrogenated oils to make that whipped cream. So they do make whipped cream with real cream, but they also have dairy free. And even, the sugar free whipped cream is usually a lot of chemicals in it. So you have to go into it knowing that,
Yeah,
it's not a healthy food, but if you're using it just as a topping, it's just for topping.
because I love that balance of the almost savory sweet spiciness
Hmm.
of the pumpkin filling against the creamy sweetness of the whipped cream. So okay, so what we're saying is it's worth it. Go for it because we're being healthy in one part of it and not so much in the other. The last recipe is something I'm making it this weekend, I swear, which is a healthier apple pie dessert, which is actually more like an apple crisp. And here we go. What is the turning point here? We talked about using a tart apple like Fuji,
Hmm.
which I think is so delicious, or Granny Smith, I
Hmm.
think is also very tart. Where does your health come from in this? Is it the
Hmm.
almond flour? Is it?
Mm.
I'm just trying to put it together here, and I love the idea of using honey. Um, but what makes this healthier than a normal apple pie?
Yeah, so healthier would be the key word. We're
Haha.
still talking about a dessert, but so we're taking out the crust, and so you're using those apples, topping them with cinnamon, using less sugar or even honey or maple syrup instead of the sugar, and then we're using oats. So oats are a better option than the bleached flour, which is common in most of the crusts, even the toppings. And so oats are going to give you that fiber with less of a blood sugar spike. So the those few swaps, I think you'll still get that warm cinnamony apple feel with less of the refined carbohydrates.
I think that's absolute genius to use oats.
Yeah.
And is that going to be very similar to the oats I use for oatmeal?
Yep. Yep. You can use instant oats. You can get
Oh,
gluten free.
fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I think it could just be a much better holiday season for all of us because we're going to be able to navigate so much of what trips us up. And I can tell you, as somebody who, right after menopause, I became a widow at the same time, I ballooned up to 200 pounds.
Yep.
And then I came back down again. And then when I went into chemotherapy for breast cancer, I think that they put so many steroids in your chemical mixture that you take in for chemo to elevate your mood and elevate your appetite. It ultra elevated my appetite, but it also had so much water retention to it. So, interestingly enough, I came back on air Thanksgiving Day of 2018, and I was surrounded. Now, I hadn't been able to eat any foods I wanted to eat for almost a year. They're very careful about that. And I came back, it was like, oh my God, I can eat food again. It is so much easier to maintain your weight
Mm-hmm.
through healthy eating than to gain weight and have to lose it. And I want to say that, and I think you might agree with me, definitely as a nutritionist, incorporating holistic practices in your food sources is so much better when you have a busy lifestyle. And trust me, I had the busiest lifestyle in history, and I was cut into my lifestyle by 90% for having the health issue of breast cancer. You don't want to feel overwhelmed by all the ingredients, but looking at the ingredients in your holiday menu, these are things: paprika, onion powder, garlic
Mm-hmm.
powder, oat milk. I use a form of oat milk,
Mm-hmm.
olive oil, squash. These are food sources that you're going to have three-quarters of them in your closet, your food closet already. But what it's going to do for you is it's a new way to live. And I'm still of that particular mindset
Mm-hmm.
that what you fuel your body with, especially as you age,
Mm-hmm.
becomes who you are, how much you can cope, where your energy level is, which is all about your purpose and what you wish to accomplish. And I found in late in life, okay, but I just had my 79th birthday, I can't cheat anymore.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people are going to say that at 58 or 68. I went on for a while, but I know now, and I'm very aware of it, what I put in my body has to integrate and enhance my body functions, not challenge them and fight them. I ask you this in conclusion: what would you like to say about nutrients and how they support
Mm-hmm.
overall health, Britta?
Yeah, so it's really you kind of hit the nail on the head there with it's about how we feel. We definitely want to look good and keep our weight down, but it's really about how you feel. So when you're feeding yourselves those good nutrients, you're gonna feel good, and that's gonna allow you to enjoy the holiday season a lot more. By having these healthier options, you're doing your body a service so that you can spend more time with your family. You can have the energy to do all of the holiday gatherings and festivities. So it's really about how you feel. And so, serving your body right is going to just improve your life.
How did you choose and get into a career as a nutritionist?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So, my dad was a chiropractor, and we grew up with a natural health practice. So, supplements were a huge part of our life. I grew up in a big family in the Midwest, and we lived in a small town. And so, we had home cooked meals every meal, and just really that natural health lifestyle. And so, I was went to college and was so into science. I love to learn about how what we put in our bodies, what it did to our bodies. And so I actually work for a dietary supplement company, and I have worked in the natural product industry for over 15 years because I feel so passionate about, natural health supplements and what nutrition can do for our bodies.
Yeah, and I just found out a terrible statistic, which is for women over 65, 85% of them are on mood enhancing drugs because they're depressed. And my belief is if you have a much healthier diet that you feel you're in control of without those sugar spikes and those highs and lows and that manic kind of energy and then exhaustion in the afternoon. I
Mm-hmm.
think you can also manage your life much better. I know I've set huge goals for myself and have tremendous purpose as I go into my 80s, about to write my third book, my fourth book, and then my fifth book. And I can't fool around. I need
Yeah.
food that gives me a good, even,
Yeah.
steady blend of fiber, energy through nutrients, and quite frankly, flavor. Because
Mhm.
also, as we age, our taste buds get less sensitive. So,
Mhm.
what we've done with these recipes, or rather, what Britta has done, is she's given you broad flavors where if you've been raised on red meat all your life, but you're in a kind of medical protocol that says don't eat red meat, which was definitely my hospital for having
Mhm.
any form of cancer or repelling cancer. I can't wait to make the meatballs with lentils, and then I bet you lentils become my best friend, and that's what I lean on for other recipes where it calls for red meat, but you could substitute this. Look at it this way, ladies. You're not going to gain as much weight through the holidays. So January and February are not going to be so indoors, housebound, but trying to starve yourself to death. That's impossible. You're going to have incredible conversation points at the holiday table because people are going to be so impressed with your originality. And if you have relatives around you that are aging and near and dear to you, and it actually hurts your heart to see them eating destructive food. You know, my best friend is having an eye problem, has gone through several eye surgeries. And I said, well, what are you eating? As in, what are you eating to support your health? And she said, Cheetos, Fritos, frozen dinners, canned queso. And I'm thinking, no, that is a suicide menu. So I think we've got to try out all these recipes, and we want to hear from all of you out there that have tried any of these recipes. I can't even decide which one to do first, because you know what? I'll tell you. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do first. The cranberry sauce, because I'm going to roast a whole chicken this weekend. I love to do that. They're very small. They run around in a pasture. They're happy chickens. They're free. And I'm going to submit my own thoughts on this. I can't wait to do it. These are all easily achievable recipes, very attainable, full of flavor and health. So you may always remain too young to be old. Thank you, Britta.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Diane. You're an inspiration. So thank
Oh,
you so
thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Too Young to Be Old podcast. The episode may be over, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Diane Gilman, or visit our website, thedianegilman.com. If you like the show, leave us a rating or a review and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And until then, don't forget, age is just a number. Together, we'll prove that we are all too young to be old.